Rupert Murdoch, get this, calls Emma Tucker and is livid, according to a person familiar with the situation.
Trump is down to his undershirt. His shirt's been taken
Okay, that
off.
is a visual.
Well, because there's so much blood.
The notion of Michael Bloomberg, who's not sort of noted for his overt human foibles, sitting down at the end of the day and just watching, broad frontier comedy over and over again really appealed to us.
Richie Akiva, who back in the day started One Oak and Butter, which were the New York hotspots.
Yeah.
Two open. You're familiar with this?
I've been to Butter.
They were the spots.
I mean, back in the day.
You didn't strike me as a models and bottles guy, Alex.
Wow.
G'day, I'm Lachlan Cartwright.
I'm Ravi Samaya.
We are Breaker, and we are coming to you from downtown New York at Lure Fish Bar in Soho. Thanks to John McDonald for inviting us down. Ravi, it's good to see you again.
Always a pleasure.
We have a very special guest on the Breaker Pod, our first guest, and we're going to start having more guests on as the weeks progress. But Alex Isenstadt is here from Axios. He has a new book out, Revenge, the inside story of Trump's return to power. You probably have already read some of the juicy morsels that are circulating around, and we're going to get into the book in a minute. But Alex, thank you for coming on.
Congratulations on the show, all your success, and
thank you very much, mate.
Thanks, Alex.
Ravi, it has been another big Butte Bonza week at Breaker. There have been scooplets galore.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite ones was in last night's newsletter, Tuesday's newsletter. We are now Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sign up at breakermedia.com. And we had a scooplet last night, Alex. And Ravi, I think it was one of your favorite items of the newsletter. It was definitely my favorite item of the newsletter. It involved Uncle Rupert Murdoch, Emma Tucker, the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal, and Oliver Darcy, who is a colleague of ours in the Beehive Media Collective. G'day, Oliver. He's over at Status. Now, the Wall Street Journal wrote a piece about Oliver and his new venture at Status, and talked about his success and how he's left CNN, and he's now started Status, which has become a must-read. That was even in the headline, and they even went to the trouble of sending a snapper down. There were these
lovely
these
photos.
glamour shots of Oliver and his new editor.
It looked like a Michael Mann
John,
movie.
Yeah, who's come across from CNN. And it was a very positive piece, and all dues to Oliver and his success. And so the piece runs in the Wall Street Journal, and there is one reader of the Wall Street Journal who takes umbrage of it, or at least one reader that we know about. Now, that reader is slightly more important than most readers in that reader owns the Wall Street Journal. So Rupert Murdoch, get this, calls Emma Tucker and is livid, according to a person familiar with the situation, who spoke to me about what went on. And he went off at her, saying, why are we giving Oliver Darcy press when he has hit us time and time again? In fact, he refers to Fox in his newsletter as a right-wing propaganda arm. And he's also been critical of the Journal and their coverage. If you remember when Biden, there were questions around his mental state, and I think in that he was critical even of Emma Tucker. So Rupert makes that phone call through to Emma Tucker and says, what are we doing here? What's going on?
I think you said it in a much calmer fashion than was suggested in the story. I think perhaps his question wasn't, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
What's going on?
It was a little bit more animated, as you could imagine the owner of the paper would be when you are publicizing one of their critics. Oliver has aggressively reported about Fox, as have many others. But a fun scooplet from the Journal and the surrounds of the Wall Street Journal. Alex, you've got some Murdoch reporting in your book. Tell us about that.
Well, Murdoch is an important figure in this book, in that his relationship with Trump goes back years, and Trump always wanted Rupert's approval. Rupert didn't really give it. And as I explain in this book, Fox's relationship with Trump is a marriage of convenience. It's not like Murdoch and Fox actually love Trump. It's that they see him as good for business.
Right. And one of the parts of the book which I think was really fascinating to me, was the debate, the debate that Fox had. And you had some reporting in that about how questions were being fed by Trump's camp right through to Fox.
Right. So let's go back to early 2024. Trump is getting a lot of heat from Biden for what he's saying about democracy, for potentially, this notion that Trump will instill violence. So there is Trump does a press conference one day in D.C. He gets a question from a reporter about if he'll accept the results of the election, would he condone violence? Trump turns around, doesn't answer that question as he's walking out of the room. Story blows up, right? And you then have him later the day. Trump flies to Iowa for a town hall with Brett Baier and Martha MacCallum. They're sitting back. Trump and his team
Two of Fox's big stars,
right?
The faces of the network.
Correct. Trump and his team are sitting backstage when all of a sudden a mole that the campaign has,
Fox mole,
a Fox News mole, texts
Woodland
over
creatures galore.
Texts over snapshots of questions, the exact questions that they are planning on asking Trump during this town hall. And so this gave Trump an opportunity. They're sitting backstage like, wow, we have these questions. We have the questions to the test before we actually get the test. So they work out what they're going to say right there on the spot. They've got a few minutes to go, and they just brainstorm questions. And one of the questions was, what do you mean when you say revenge? When you talk about revenge and retribution, and Trump comes up with an answer because he knows he's getting heat for this.
He's rehearsed.
That's when he comes up with the answer. Our revenge will be success. Right? It's a
success
much more.
Success is the best revenge.
Success is the best revenge. Yes. Right. And so Trump is proud of this answer. It's a smooth answer. He's calm when he answers the question. Now we know why. The next day, he has a conversation with the then RNC chair, Ronna McDaniel. And he tells McDaniel, did you see my answer last night? And he was really proud of it. But it's an interesting anecdote, and it shows, how Trump is willing to play the game. And it's an interesting anecdote, I think.
After the story came out, Fox News launched a mole hunt. Now, Fox loves launching a mole hunt when they think that someone from the inside is leaky. I actually reached out to Fox, before this pod. They didn't have any comment. I believe that investigation is ongoing into the mole.
Yeah.
But what do we think that Fox does when they've got a mole? Do they have some sort of black ops operation, Ravi, where you think that they're tracking through people's emails and texts, or what is?
Perish the thought, Lachlan. I think they make a polite inquiry, and the well-being of their journalists is their first concern.
And their journalistic integrity
and the integrity,
and their employees, and they probably thought, what a great scoop that Alex had, and good on him, and we'll go get a copy of Revenge in all the bookstores. And
I think that's how Rupert built his empire, isn't it? On just sort of kindness and fellow feeling. Is that correct, Alex?
Scoops, which you've got a lot of in this book. There's another one that I loved, which was Trump's reaction to the New York Post Wood, which we've spoken about on this pod previously, when Trump announces they buried the story on the Wood, which we know from this pod is the front page splash. They would have splash off another story, and then they just used the strapline to say Florida man and bury the yarn on page 26. What was Trump's reaction, Alex?
Trump's reaction is, Rupert, he's so cold. How could he do this? May have used more colorful language than that. But another example, Trump wants Rupert's approval. Trump, for as much as he rails against the old media, the legacy media, and the elites, he always has wanted Rupert's approval. He wants the approval of the establishment, right? And that's a theme of this book.
It is, and the Fox network again plays a central role with this, because Sean Hannity becomes this pivotal figure in, I guess, backchanneling the relationship.
Right. So let's go back to March of 2023. Trump's about to make his first visit to Iowa. The next day, he's with his team. He's drafting remarks for what he's going to say during that trip. All of a sudden, Sean Hannity calls, right? Trump puts
Hannity... getting that call. It's Sean Hannity.
Right. Trump puts the call on speaker so those in the room can hear it.
Which he loves doing, Trump.
Which he loves doing.
Right.
Which he loves doing.
Trump trick.
Right. And so Hannity says, look, we just, Trump has been hitting Fox relentlessly at this point. He's just been going after the Murdochs aggressively. And Sean Hannity says, please stop hitting Fox, stop hitting the Murdochs. I'm trying to get things back to normal. Please stop. And then Trump is kind of enjoying it, right? Like Hannity's groveling, and Trump loves being in this power position, right? And Trump says, well, I don't know, Sean. I don't know. Fox, the Murdochs, I don't know. They've not been too nice to me. And then Hannity kind of gives up on Trump and says, Susie, are you there? And he's referring to Susie Wiles. She's in the room with him. And he starts pleading to Susie, right? And he says, can we please just bring the temperature down? Can we please? And then Susie, she doesn't want to undercut the boss who's right there. So she says, well, Sean, the president's going to do what the president's going to do. He's going to be right. He's going to be fair in what he decides to do. And then pretty soon Trump cuts off the call and he says, well, Sean's just trying to do thing, but I don't know. And then he just like ends the call basically.
Well, the speakerphone giveth and the speakerphone taketh away. You know,
Right.
It's an etiquette issue.
Right.
There's another great piece of reporting in the book. The Trump assassination attempt, the first one, there were two, has always been fascinating to me because we know still very little about the assassin who was taken out that day. But you have some good background and a TikTok of what went down in the hospital room when Trump gets taken to the emergency ward.
Yeah. So we all know what happened when he was on stage. We've all seen it. We've seen the footage. One of my goals in this book was to find out what happened afterwards because it's kind of a black hole, right? We don't have that much information. And so one of the things I found was that Trump was very much thinking about politics. And this is a guy, and we know this, right? He's always thinking about visuals and he's thinking about images all the time. And so
He's good at it.
Yeah. And he gets to the hospital. And these images, these photographs are presented to him. And now let's go take it in the context. Trump's hat is down to his undershirt. His shirt's been taken off.
Okay, that is a visual.
Well, because there's so much blood.
Sure.
There's so much blood on the shirt. So he doesn't have his shoes on because he lost them on stage.
Didn't he went and grabbed back one of the shoes though, right? I remember that footage where he was trying to get that shoe back.
But he
didn't
didn't
leave the
get it.
stage without the shoe, right?
He didn't get it, but he ended up getting it. An aide went and got it later, retrieved it later. But his team shows him these pictures, and he automatically says that photograph is iconic. That's the most American photo I've ever seen.
This is the photo where he is fighting.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
And he knew the power of that
visual.
Of that visual. There's one other media-related item I want to talk about here, which is that we all know that Stephen Chung, the spokesman, ends up putting out a statement where he says the president effectively, he's okay, he's fine. Let's go back to before he puts that statement out. Chung and others on the team, their phones are basically melting down at this point, right? They're just getting absolutely inundated. There's chaos. Reporters want to know what's going on. Other people in political circles want to know what's going on, and their phones are just melting down. Chung at one point gets an inquiry from a reporter whose name I will not reveal. I will not reveal their name. And
guess who? Don't sue.
And so this reporter says, we understand that Trump is dead, and we are going to report it. At that point, Chung and the team scramble to put
That's a way of getting a call back.
Imagine that voicemail.
So Chung drafts the statement, shows it to Susie Wiles, shows it to Dan Scavino, Trump's longtime social media guy, and he puts out the statement. But it illustrates the just pure chaos that was going on at this point, and this is what I tried to bring out in this part of the book.
How do you think Trump is now reacting to media coverage? We're several weeks into this administration. He had, it was honeymoon is probably a right word to describe it. He won. But now you look at, for instance, I'll pick the Wall Street Journal because we just had the scoop about Emma Tucker and the Journal. Their editorial pages, Alex, are taking a very aggressive stance against Trump. How do you think he's reacting to the different coverage in different publications?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, which is that we hear a lot about the attention that the White House is paying to alternative media, conservative media,
like breaking media. They're obviously
Yes. I mean, they care about these other outlets, new media outlets. I mean, the press office makes it very clear at the White House that they care a lot, that they're going to give access to
Do you reckon they'd give Breaker Media a seat at the next White House press conference?
I'd reach out to them and see.
We will.
Just tell them you've heard Trump is dead.
Yeah, I'll definitely get a call back.
Free advice. I would reach out to them and ask them, and they might be amenable to it. But here's the thing, which is that I still think Trump cares intensely about legacy media.
The New York Post, the New York Times, he grew up with these publications. He cares what's on the front page of these publications. I don't believe for an
instant that he doesn't care. And let's go back yesterday, Tuesday of this week, to when he puts out a True Social about the Atlantic. Well, it turns out the Atlantic has wants an interview with him. Trump has always been infuriated by the coverage the Atlantic has given him. And so
the Atlantic, which are just down the road, by the way.
And he goes on and he attacks a couple of well-regarded reporters from the Atlantic. Well, if you don't care about the legacy media, if you don't care about, then why would you spend that much time attacking the Atlantic?
It's a bit like when someone breaks up with someone and keeps telling you how over them they are. And
right.
It's like, well, if you were actually over them, you would maybe not still be talking
I've
about
never done that, by the way.
Well,
I've never done that.
Well, you're a classy, elegant fellow.
Right.
I think you're a bit like Cary Grant, Alex. We've just met, but there's a vibe.
Thank you.
So maybe we all can't live up to your standards.
Thank you.
You blokes have both written books. I'm the only one at this table who hasn't written a book.
The water's warm.
I
think there's a book in your future.
There's a lot to crack on with. Alex, how have you found the press tour for the book? How have you found, you've been out there, you're on TV, you're on pods, your book has got a lot of attention. How have you found the reaction to it? How have you found the press tour?
Not to suck up to you, but I really have enjoyed, well, I sort of am sucking up to you, but...
Yeah, suck up. We love that. We're like Trump.
I'm really
Flattery
enjoying...
will get you everywhere here
I'm really enjoying these podcasts. I have to tell you, the ability to do in-depth conversations with people such as yourself, it's been enjoyable, and to be able to go into depth in terms of what's in this book. I think that there's, I'm proud of the reporting I've done. I'm excited to share it with people, and to be able to talk about it with folks such as yourself. And thank you for what you're doing out here in terms of having such an entertaining show, an interesting show. And thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It's great to have guests on now, Ravi. We're going to be booking more guests. Breaker at breakermedia.com if you want to come on the pod. We've had 2 action-packed newsletters, and I'm trying to keep up with all of the scooplets that we have had. But we've done a lot of reporting around what's going on at Columbia and the Columbia Journalism School. And we had a piece just last night, Ravi, about what's been happening there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so dissimilar to the Trump White House in that it's a really small world with its own strange rules. And of course, I worked there for a while. Lachlan had written one piece for the Columbia Journalism Review, so I'm very familiar with it. Lachlan's a little bit familiar with it. And whenever I see the coverage, it's very difficult to place it in context. It's very difficult to understand just the level of sort of paranoia and hysteria and just kind of difficulty that the school is facing. So, one of the first things that happened after Trump got elected was someone, we presume MAGA hackers, had hacked printers at Columbia to just print Die Muslims over and over again. And, this is just my theory or my view from working there or from my experience of it. They kind of entered into this symbiotic relationship with the Trump administration and with MAGA world, where each just considered the other just an outrageous affront to American life. And each kind of raised money and support through doing that. And that symbiosis kind of ticked along until Trump was reelected, and now is, candidly seems to be persecuting the university and using the protests, the pro-Palestine protests on campus as a pretext to strip funding, to deport one student or arrest and seek to deport one student who has a green card, which is a major departure from certainly legal and governmental norms. And the school is just embattled. As often happens when institutions are in that position, people are turning on each other. So there are these accusations that one member of the faculty has been doxing another member of the faculty. There's a feeling that the university, after encouraging these protests and kind of not quite promoting them, but certainly being permissive about their existence, is now cracking down in too draconian a fashion, and the students and the faculty, they don't know which way to turn.
And we even had some reporting from, it sounded like a very dramatic meeting where, a former dean of the the J School collapsed.
Yeah, I mean, the atmosphere it's very difficult to describe how febrile the atmosphere is and just how tense it is. Because, from the outside, it's a university. The word academic applies in many different directions, and you can't quite understand the high pitch of emotion. But at this meeting, one professor, a photographer called Nina Berman, was telling a story of how she was doxxed. And doxing, as you guys both know, means when sensitive information is put out about you, kind of with the intent.
Anyone at this table been doxxed? Thankfully, I have not been doxxed. We don't want to give you doxxed. But
the Trump people tried to dox me
They
once,
did?
but the only information they found was that I had attended a conference, but I had skipped a bunch of sessions to hang out with my wife. And I was just like, but that makes me look good. Please leak that. That makes me sound like a great guy.
Well, what sessions did you miss? It depends on what sessions you missed.
It was the Vanity Fair Tech Conference, and I think you're supposed to be blown away by being invited, but I'm not really like that, so I just went for lunch with my wife. It was really nice. We hadn't been to San Francisco before. It was pleasant weather. I had a nice time.
Yeah.
And, they called me up, and they were like, well,
Vanity Fair did?
No, Vanity Fair didn't. The Trump people did. It was
yeah.
actually Michael Cohen and Ken Kurson, if you guys remember who Ken Kurson is. And they called me up and said, well, look, we don't want to be mean to you, but we've heard this thing about you skipping these conference sessions. And I was like,
as if this was something bombshell.
It just took me a moment to be like, is that a threat?
Why did they care about you missing the conference?
I think their argument was like, so I was doing a story which was making an allegation that Trump had pressured the New York Observer, of course owned by his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, edited by Ken Kurson, to write a story that was negative about Eric Schneiderman, who was the AG of New York.
Correct.
And was in some sense going after Trump. And the story was really weird. They couldn't find anyone to write this story in the way they wanted to write it. So Ken found a guy who worked in his local ice cream shop, and he asked this guy to write the story. And, it was... They didn't really want it out there. They weren't super pleased about it. And so they called me up just before deadline and were like, look, I know you want to run this story, but have you thought about the fact that you didn't attend a conference session? And I was like, what?
What a bizarre threat.
What? Okay.
Out of all the threats to try and get a story spiked.
Yeah. So that's my heist. I mean, your experiences are significantly more robust than mine.
Yeah, I've been on the end of several multi-million dollar legal threats.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that
I kept mine kind of cottage core. It was kind of cozy intimidation.
The legal threats have since stopped, thankfully.
Yeah.
But one segment of the newsletter that continues is Unlikely Friends. And so every week, Alex, we have been reporting about an unlikely friendship. And in previous weeks, it's been everything from the leader of India having an unlikely friendship, Modi, with Andrew Cuomo.
Oh, interesting.
We've also reported on
Brett Ratner and Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah. And this week's unlikely friendship was Mike Bloomberg and
the movie Blazing Saddles. So
is he a fan?
So
big fan.
What we heard is that he's one of these people, I don't know, we'll talk about your preferences in a minute, Alex, one of these people who enjoys watching a movie over and over again to unwind. And his choice of viewing, from what we heard, was Blazing Saddles. And so the notion of Michael Bloomberg, a very analytical, a very business-minded, a very focused man who's not sort of noted for his overt human foibles, sitting down at the end of the day and just watching, broad frontier comedy over and over again really appealed to us. So we called up Bloomberg, and they confirmed he liked the movie, but frankly, they seemed too scared to go and ask him if he watched it over and over again. But, I would take our sources to the bank. And Lachlan and I talked about this, and I'm a repeat viewer. I will watch a movie over and over again.
What is your movie?
So my movie, I have a few. There's like kind of a group of them. The main one I would say is The Fugitive, just because I can watch Harrison
Ford.
I can watch Harrison Ford say, "When I came home, there was a man in my house," until the end of time. It's just a wonderful, wonderful scene.
You use that line? You walk around your house. There's a bloke in my house.
Actually, when I had a kid, I used it because you didn't get, I have a son, and you don't get used to it for a while. The fact that you have a child, and I would come home and there'd be a man in my house.
What is your go-to?
I've seen The Big Lebowski probably multiple times.
Cracking
I think.
movie.
Yeah, it's on my list too, actually.
Cracking film.
But I generally like to see new stuff day to day.
So
I just want to see new stuff.
I am with you. And when Ravi asked me this initially, I said, you know what, I get bored. But there is one film I go back to constantly. It's Dead Poets Society. Captain, My Captain. That line where the students rise up. And Robin Williams, R.I.P., is just absolutely brilliant in that movie. And I can watch that film.
Ethan Hawke too.
My parents hid that movie when I was a kid. It was in our house. It was on a VHS tape. And they hid it from me.
Why?
Because I was quite young, and there was a suicide scene in that film. Okay. And I think they thought that would be quite confronting. So one night they went out, to dinner, and I went and found Dead Poets Society. On it, my dad had actually, R.I.P., we had the white stickers on the VHS, so he just put Dead.
Oh, he knew his son.
P.T. Yeah, so journo kind of didn't take that much investigative work to find it. And I plugged it in and I watched it and I cried because it's an emotional movie and I loved it. And then I realized my parents are going to be back in 20 minutes, so I went to put the VHS back. And I thought
this was VHS days.
This is how old I am. This is VHS.
Yeah, no,
days.
I've done it too, like Blockbuster.
No, it was a.
Yeah, you owned it. Okay.
Yeah, it was one that we'd recorded off the TV. Yeah. And then they came to me the next day and they said, Lachlan, you went and watched Dead Poets Society. And I thought, I was like, I'm not going to give the game away, but I'm thinking, how did they know? How did they tweak? And then my dad just said, you could have thought to fucking rewind it. And so I was absolutely busted for watching Dead Poets Society.
Your VHS etiquette tripped you up.
If anyone has a VHS player, Breaker at breakingmedia.com, it just reminded me my show reel, my TV reporting show reel is on a VHS.
Oh, we got to see that
tape.
We got to see it.
We are back downtown. I was at a book party last night. David Emmerich from the New York Times has a new book, Murder the Truth, out, which we had an excerpt in, or an item in a previous week. And I walked out of the book party last night, and it was an Irish pub in Midtown. I walked straight into Times Square, and it was like blasted by these insane lights. I hadn't been up to Times Square at night for some time, and I had to get back downtown, Ravi. I was out of sorts when I go.
Midtown freaks me out. Freaks me out. I can't do it.
Uptown.
It's too many people.
But we've been reporting a lot about new ventures downtown, new clubs, new restaurants. And we had an item last week, and I just love the headline that you came up with, which was the Club King, the Pope, and the Scion, right?
The Sunglass Scion, I believe.
The Sunglass Scion, thank you. And it was about Richie Akiva, who has been a fixture of nightlife in this city, Alex, and how he has teamed up with a bloke that is a billionaire who inherited the sunglasses empire that makes Oliver Peoples, and they own Sunglasses hat. His name...
Sunglass Hut.
Sunglasses Hut, thank you.
Well, I would wear a sunglass hat.
Yeah. What would that look like? Just like a hat with the sunglasses resting on it.
It's convenient.
And then would you have your sunglasses as well as the sunglasses hat?
No, just the sunglass hat.
Okay.
That would be my...
Yeah, you wouldn't need the sunglasses. No. Okay.
Efficiency.
His name is Leonardo Mario Del Vecchio. I believe that's how you pronounce it.
I would say Del Vecchio.
Del Vecchio, thank you. As the audience here at Breaker are finding out that, it takes me a little while to get the names right. But in any event, this bloke who inherited, when his father sadly passed away a couple of years ago, this fortune from this huge sunglasses empire is in discussions with Richie Akiva, who back in the day started One Oak and Butter, which were the New York hotspots. Yeah. To open, you're familiar with these?
I've been to Butter.
They were the spots.
I mean, back in the day.
You didn't strike me as a models and bottles guy, Alex.
Well, this is like 2005, 2006.
Oh, it was the wild days of Isenstadt.
Well, how old are you then? How old are you then? Like
42. 42.
I can't even remember how old I am now, honestly.
We have aged about a year in the last month of Breaker. But Richie Akiva is trying to make a comeback with the help of the sunglasses bloke. And relaunch a downtown club in Tribeca, and this is just...
Is it any good?
Well, it hasn't reopened as yet, but the last iteration of this location was a bit of a hotspot. But Richie Akiva back in the day was the club king, and he was the models and bottles bloke. And Ravi, you're a big models and bottles bloke, so
strictly bottles of water.
You'll be rushing down to this new
I'll be
club.
Lining up. I'll be lining up.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
You love lining up for.
Yeah, you know what I love? I love when my drinks come with sparklers in them. That makes me so happy.
Well, you can have your sunglasses hat and your sparklers.
That's it. It's gonna be a hot spot. Actually, I used to wear a big fur hat when I went clubbing, as a pathetic attempt to begin conversations. And it worked.
And you wore a pink hat to the Bloomberg press conference. You wore a fur hat. Can you imagine what's in his closet?
No, it's pretty hat heavy.
We also had a scooplet this week, which was a follow to last week, where we revealed that Daily Beast is starting to use AI to write articles. We were told at the time by their spokesperson, we had tested the efficiency of AI, and it wasn't very efficient. And so, my interpretation of that statement was, okay, we're not using AI anymore. And then Friday, I get a tip and a bunch of articles, one from the FT, one from Reuters, one from Fox News, that were being run on the Daily Beast via AI. And I'm sitting there going like, what's going on? Is the AI come back to life? Is it the machine is just like, I woke it again and I'm spitting out this stuff?
That's it. Overthrown the leadership, taken over the site, begun writing dull articles.
So like aggregation stories?
Well, this is
the
weird thing.
What kind of stories are they doing?
Yeah, it's aggregation. But the bizarre thing about how they're using this, and I don't know what the legality is, but they're taking a Financial Times story, they're putting it into the AI, especially, they told us it's a specially trained AI, Alex, not just a run-of-the-mill AI. So they put the article in from the FT or Reuters or whatever, and then it spits out a copy, a story, which then they run under the Daily Beast banner. They do declare it's AI, but you've got to think, what does the FT think about that, or what does Reuters think about that? And
well, what do you think about it, Alex?
Well, are they crediting the FT?
They do right at the bottom of the piece.
So what's the point of aggregate? Is it just so they can get traffic for the FT story?
I would guess so, yeah.
Yes. It's their cheat sheet, which was always aggregated.
How effective
content.
was it in terms of its summary of the FT story?
Well, according to the spokesperson, not very effective, because they said it wasn't that efficient. We've tested the efficiency and it wasn't that efficient.
Yeah.
But some of your work was aggregated by the Daily Beast in the last few days.
Are you happy about being aggregated or sad?
In this particular case, I don't know that I want to comment, actually, in terms of the effectiveness of the Daily Beast aggregation. Let's just say it wasn't exactly accurate.
Well, I'll say as an author, it takes a lot of hard work to write a book. It's like I found it turned to be much more of a creative task than I had anticipated, which sounds ridiculous, but it was. Are you worried about a world in which people can easily summarize things and read just like a few pages here and there?
Well, you worry about people summarizing it accurately.
Yeah.
What I found in writing this book is that, and fact-checking things with people, is that every word matters.
Yeah.
And I was on book leave from November through part of January, and you go after word after word after word with sources, and every word matters. And so you have to trust, or rather you have to hope, that people who are aggregating your book, who are writing about your book, are going to do it accurately.
Because people get mad at you.
Get mad at you.
You're the one taking
You're the one taking
angry phone calls, right?
And so that was something that was eye-opening to me, and I would say that's something that I wasn't prepared for as I went through this process.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not super worried about AI because it's okay at summarizing things, but the thing that you're talking about, which is like, you care about every word, you care about every nuance, you care about the feeling that you're fomenting in your readers. Yeah. Like a machine cannot do that. It's not possible. Yeah. I wish there was one that could, because I would let it do it, but it doesn't.
Or a specially trained one.
Yeah,
based upon your guys' reporting, how far along is AI in newsrooms, broadly speaking, in terms of doing some of these jobs?
I think a lot of places that I speak to are still really in this testing phase. But I did see the Independent announced, I think, yesterday or the day before, that they were doing an offshoot called Bulletin, which will be all AI-generated material, but it will be overseen by editors and journalists.
Look, my impression is that, people who look after the checkbook and who attend conferences and actually go to the panels, they're super into it. They would like it to be a thing. It's the latest corporate buzzword. They want to feel like they're part of it.
But you can throw around AI.
To me, it's like a bit of a marketing nonsense. That's how how I see it. But I think, practically speaking, there's not much you can do with it.
So is there a world? Is there a world where AI can do more than just aggregation, but can actually do more in-depth reporting, source-based reporting?
I mean, I think this is why none of the three blokes at this table will be out of a job anytime soon because AI can't liquor up a source. And that original enterprise
is that your technique?
Reporting, going and knocking on a door, winning a source's trust, going through obtaining docs, bits of paper that are sensitive, going through those, standing a story up, winning the trust of a source,
figuring out every word,
fact checking it to the degree that you did with this book, Alex. I don't see the bots there at this point. And I struggle to see at what point they're going to get to that level
I have a grand
original reporting.
Sorry, I have a grand philosophical theory because I always do that. What a piece of writing is a communication between the person who wrote it and the person who's reading it. That's a human connection.
Right.
If you want your book to succeed, you're making a connection with people. It's like meeting them. Like you could not. It wouldn't be practical for you to do all this reporting, tap people on the shoulder and tell them it all. And so instead of doing that, you've written it down in a book and you're out here marketing it so people know about it. But it's no less a human connection than it would be if you did that. It's just the best version of it. And I just can't imagine a computer can ever, garner that level of soul.
Yeah. Well, Alex, congrats on the book.
Thank you.
Revenge,
Thanks for having me.
The inside story of Trump's return.
I love the ominousness of the cover, by the way. It's very ominous.
How do you go about selecting a cover for a book
I
like
will
this?
tell you that the discussions with my publisher about the cover were some of the most in-depth conversations that I had over the course of the book, and the creative process of making a cover was far more involved than I expected, than I knew. And I don't know what your experience was in writing a book, but I learned a lot of things there were a lot of things that came down the pike that I didn't expect, if that makes sense.
No, and I think you have a sense, basically, that book covers are not just bunged together last second. But I don't
With
think
crayons and sticky tape, and it's like...
it's not an afterthought. It does look very deliberate. You don't understand, there are all these impressions you get when you walk into a bookstore and look around at books. Like, they have to speak to you very, very quickly because people do judge books by their cover.
I was going to say that.
Which reminds me of my favorite ever review of my book, which was on Amazon, I believe, and it said...
I want my money back, sorry.
No, plenty of people said that, but one person said, you should never judge a book by its cover. This book has a great cover.
Oh, does it?
That's
and did you
conceptualize
it?
I was like, wow, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Did you conceptualize the cover, or did your publisher conceptualize it?
We conceptualized. Well, I would say it was mostly them, to be honest with you. There's certain genre codes that they wanted to put into it. Like my temptation would be to do something wild and artistic and just see what happens. But as you know, publishers do not like the words, let's see what happens. Which is fair enough because they're bunging in, hundreds of thousands, or maybe in your case, given your grand status, Alex, millions of dollars towards a book. And, they want to know where it's going.
Well, I'll take $10 for my.
I want to say one thing about this gentleman right here. I want to say one thing about it. So very early on in the process, I get a call from an unknown number. He says, "Alex, I understand that you've signed a new book deal," and I'm like, I didn't want it out. I'm like, oh my god. So I do the worst thing anyone could do, which is hey, can you go talk to Politico's spokesman, which is the last thing a reporter wants to hear. So I just want you, first of all, I'm really sorry about that.
You flacked me. That's what you did.
I'm really sorry about that.
You flacked me.
We ended the call.
You gave the scoop to another more friendlier outlet, right?
We ended the call.
Doesn't forget that stuff, Alex.
Listen, this is how good this guy is at his job. We ended the call by him saying, "Congratulations on the book deal," and I'm like, I just hung up the phone. I'm like,
well, congratulations on the book. It is out now. Revenge. Thank you, Alex, for being on the pod.
Pleasure.
Go to breakermedia.com. Breakermedia.com to subscribe to Breaker Tuesdays and Thursdays. This pod, Ravi, will be up on YouTube on Thursday and
Apple, Spotify, anywhere else you get your podcast. You can listen, you can look, you can do anything you like. Well, mostly listen and look.
And next week we'll be back in another downtown venue. If you want your venue featured, email us breaker@breakermedia.com. Your cafe, your bar, your restaurant, wherever you would love to see us. We'll be back next week. Cheers.
Thank you.